Before poetry was sold in books or performed on grand stages, there was a farm girl with a notebook and a dream. Her words didn't come from fame or fortune. They came from mud on her boots and laughter in her heart. This is the story of Pam Ayres, the woman who turned everyday life into art, pain into humor, and ordinary moments into poetry that touched millions. Pam Ayres was born on March 14, 1947, in Stamford-in-the-Vale, a small village tucked deep in Berkshire, England. The sixth child in a working-class family, Pam's world was a patchwork of post-war simplicity: bicycles on muddy roads, milk churns by the gate, and radio voices filling the air instead of television screens. Her father worked for the electricity board, her mother, a homemaker with a sharp wit and gentle eyes. Life was modest, sometimes hard, but it brimmed with character. Pam found beauty in the ordinary long before she ever realized it would define her career. She often said that her upbringing gave her the rhythm of the earth, something no poetry school could ever teach. At school, she wasn't the loudest child, but she had something rare: the instinct to listen, observe, and then turn those observations into verse. By her teens, she was scribbling rhymes about people in her village, their habits, their gossip, their loves and heartbreaks. But no one, not even Pam, could have guessed that those small verses would one day echo across Britain. After leaving school at 15, Pam took a series of jobs, selling records, working as a secretary, and eventually joining the Women's Royal Air Force, WRAF. The discipline of military life was far from poetry, but it gave her something she'd never had before: a stage. In the evenings, she'd perform little comic poems for her friends. Her bunkmates would gather, stifling laughter as Pam delivered her rhymes with perfect timing, her voice rising and falling like music. The spark was there. When she left the WRAF, she returned to civilian life and worked at a radio station as a typist. One day, a BBC producer overheard her reciting one of her poems. He paused, listened, and smiled. "You've got something," he said. That something would soon change everything. In 1975, Pam entered a poetry reading competition on BBC Radio Oxford. She didn't expect to win, but her piece, a hilarious yet heartfelt poem called "The Battery Hen," left the audience in stitches. Her humor was relatable, her delivery unique, and her accent, proudly rural, made her an instant favorite. That one opened doors, and one of them led straight to television. In 1975, Pam stepped onto the stage of Opportunity Knocks, a popular British talent show. Clutching her notes, wearing her honest smile, she began to recite. The audience laughed, applauded, and voted, and Pam Ayres won. Overnight, the girl from the countryside became a household name. She wasn't glamorous or trained. She was authentic. Her poems, witty, self-deprecating, and brimming with heart, spoke to the nation. Lines like, "I wish I'd looked after me teeth," became part of pop culture itself. Publishers called. Record producers wanted her voice. She appeared on BBC programs, sold out theaters, and her books climbed the charts. But even as success surrounded her, Pam kept her humor close and her past closer. She said once, "I never wanted to be famous. I just wanted people to listen." But fame has its price, and even someone as wholesome as Pam couldn't escape its weight. Behind the laughter and rhyme was a woman searching for balance. Fame brought attention, and with it, curiosity. The public adored her, but some critics dismissed her as pop poetry. That stung. She'd worked hard for her craft, and the labels hurt. Still, Pam fought back the only way she knew: through her words. Amid her growing career, Pam found love. She met Dudley Russell, a theater producer. Their romance was a slow, steady flame rather than a spark, grounded, loyal, and full of mutual respect. They married in 1986, away from the spotlight. For Pam, home became her sanctuary. They settled in a quiet corner of the Cotswolds, surrounded by fields and animals, a poetic life, quite literally. Motherhood followed. Her 2 sons became her grounding force, reminding her of what truly mattered. Yet juggling fame and family wasn't easy. The tours, the interviews, the public expectations, all took their toll. Pam sometimes withdrew from the scene, retreating to her farm when fame became too loud. Behind her humor, Pam faced battles of self-doubt. Critics accused her of being too common, too simple, or too commercial. Some literary elites dismissed her work, calling it doggerel. Those words hurt deeply. Pam, who had always celebrated ordinary people, suddenly found herself treated as less than serious. But that pain, too, became her poetry. She wrote with more heart, more honesty. Her verses grew deeper, blending comedy with melancholy. She spoke about aging, loss, motherhood, and self-worth, still wrapped in humor, but tinged with the sadness of experience. Pam once said, "People laugh when I read, but I write because it hurts." The poems come from places laughter tries to hide. Away from fame, she faced personal losses, the deaths of loved ones, health struggles, the quiet isolation of rural life. But she channeled every emotion into her writing. Her later works carried more depth, showing a woman who had lived and loved fully. Today, Pam Ayres stands as a rare figure, a poet who bridged the gap between art and everyday life. She made poetry accessible, relatable, and alive. Her voice remains instantly recognizable, warm, witty, wise. Even in her 70s, she continues to perform, her presence commanding laughter and tears in equal measure. She writes not for fame, but for connection, that moment when a stranger smiles and says, "That's me. I've felt that." Pam Ayres' legacy isn't measured in awards, but in affection. She gave Britain a new kind of poetry, one that laughed at life while embracing it fully. In every rhyme she wrote, Pam Ayres captured something rare, the joy of being human. Her words reminded us that beauty doesn't just live in sonnets or ballads. It lives in kitchen tables, muddy boots, and honest laughter. She was never chasing fame. She was chasing truth. And perhaps that's why we still listen.